I'm ready to go. We got the broadcast started.
So, Alton, if you can come up, and we'll switch over to Pat. Pat will give us the specifics on how we compete.
Yeah, and then we're going to break right into Alton. So we're not going to go through.
Oh, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Okay.
We're definitely not. I'm not going to be up here for 35 minutes or anything talking about this, but I want to make sure that we set the stage for exactly where you find out information, how you compete, how you cooperate with everybody else. I want to make sure that everything is clear to everyone what you need to have done, okay? Because in the last competition it was a little sketchy. We weren't sure on every piece, so now we're going to make sure we have everything. Can everybody read this somewhat okay? Yes?
Yeah, can you dim some of the lights? You know?
If somebody can grab one of the Leonardo employees right outside, she can dim those. We were playing with them earlier, so, oh, right there. Can you try to dim these up front a little bit, or these, for us? You can turn them off. I won't let anybody fall asleep. Is that better? Okay, so I've got a whole bunch of little USB thumb drives up here. If you start falling asleep, I'm going to throw them. All right? So keep that in mind. So this page, www.bigdatautah.org, okay, it's live right now. You can go and look at this. Everything that I'm going to be talking about is there so that you can reference it and you know exactly where to go and get it. All right, bigdatautah.org, www.bigdatautah.org. So what are we doing? I'm not going to go over that again. Nick already explained that. I'm not going to worry about explaining that. Why are we doing it? We talked about that a little bit. Grow the community, teach the community, and of course, improve air quality. Those are really our key goals in this whole idea and this whole process. Everything about what we're talking about, just like Nick mentioned, everything during the summer is to cooperate. Nobody sitting next to you is your enemy in competition or anything like that. It's all about sharing and helping to learn. Okay?
Not yet, anyway.
Not yet. Exactly. When we go off and say compete and form your teams, that is when we start talking about actually competing. Everything right now, we want the person next to you to help you learn how to do Hadoop or learn how to do MapReduce or R or whatever comes up. We want you to learn from the person next to you. It is definitely a learning competition. Where are we housing all the data? We've picked up a site, or we're using a site called Salt Lake City Open Civic Data. It's listed right here. This site houses open data sets for the city of Salt Lake City. Okay, for the city government. Now, they just launched this recently, and we're helping to get the word out, and they also said, well, just go ahead and throw your files up here, because then everybody can get to them. And they're all open data sets that way anyways. Remember, everything that you do, all the code, all the data that you end up with is all going to be open sourced. Meaning, it's got to come back up here, it's got to be provided on GitHub repositories, and other people have to use it. None of this can end really in a commercial result, unless you take it later on after the competition, okay? It's the way it has to work right now, being this is open data and the data that we're receiving. So they're all gonna go up onto this site. You're gonna send me that information I have right here. You'll see there's a form down here that you can submit right there. And that form just gives us a little email and says, hey, we wanna submit this data set. Now, that data set's going to live basically on your computers, your systems for right now until it comes down to this as the final ending, okay? We are working on getting you some usage on Azure or AWS or things like that to do that processing work, but right now it's all basically stuff that you have to do on your own. All right, that's where we're going to put it. Where are we getting it? Where are we getting data? Again, there's a link to a form. Right, oh, did that one not make it in? Yeah, submission form. Here it is. We want you to tell us where you have found. I know Alton already found a spot. I think Ben told me that he had one. David's had one. There's been a few different people that have said, hey, what about this site and this site? We want you to submit those here. And then we want to help everybody work on getting that data together and then get it up there so it's collaborative. Okay, so you're going to tell us where to get that data. Now, at the same time, we're going to get some of the data from the government. So we've already been meeting with the state of Utah, and we're working with just about every major department to get their data that they have out to us as well. And that will come through this site. So I'll be working directly with them. If you have any questions about that, you can see me after. We're not all going to hit the state together. That would be very mean and take a lot of time. So we will come through me and I will talk to them and find out what data we can get. But I expect somewhere towards right around the beginning of July, maybe mid or so, we're going to have a lot of really cool data that the state's going to give us. And this is data that probably a lot of people haven't seen. So it's really an awesome, awesome thing.
Do keep in mind, though, that you may have questions. You may think, oh, can we get access to this data?
Yeah.
Like tax data.
Exactly.
Maybe we didn't think about that before.
Yep.
So tell us so that we can go request it.
Yeah, we will ask anything. We will not guarantee that we will get it, but we will ask anything. Okay, so if you have an idea that air quality can be fixed by looking at the tax records, we will ask and we will try to prove that point. But, you know, whether or not they actually give it to it, that's another story.
Gasoline tax is a great example.
Yeah, something like that. So how are we going to process the data? Again, we're trying to get you sites, cloud sites and things like that that can help process it. But a lot of it's these learning sessions we're going to have on Fridays. Alton will talk a lot about what he's already done right now, and he'll have a lot of training throughout the summer, and so will many other people in the community, training you how to get the data and how to clean it. And then from there, you can publish it back to us. Okay, my last couple points, really quick. Exactly what you need to get started. Okay, you need to go to the site, you need to register on that form that is right here. That is the form. This is the mailing list. We're going to send this out tonight and probably Monday and a few other times. This will tell you exactly what's going on anytime with the competition. If we have AWS resources to use, if we have data sets to use, it will come through that email list. Okay, so make sure you are signed up on that email list. Second things, join the Meetup. We use that for our calendar. There's other events besides every Friday's Leonardo. There's a UHUG meeting next week that's going to be great and have a lot of good information. We'll put that up there. If we have a training 2 weeks from now, then we'll put that up there as well. So you'll want to join the Meetup just so you can see all the different events going on. We will mention it in the newsletter as well, but a lot of people like Meetup because it's a lot simpler to use for your calendar. Follow the Utah Geek events on Google+. I'm broadcasting this live on air, so you can be back at your desk if you wanted to. I don't know how well it's working. We're going to find out. But we're going to record every one of these sessions, and they're all going to go through that Google+ account and that YouTube channel, which is right here. So even if you miss something on a Friday or next Wednesday when we have the UHUG meeting, hopefully you can go back and watch the recording and you can learn from it. Okay?
Or if you want to save on commutes back and forth.
Yeah, to save air quality, exactly. We do want to see you, though, as much as possible. We like that social aspect. We want everybody to be social in the community. So, yes, I agree. Let's save the air quality. But I'm sure you guys are going to come up with much better ways than just not driving. And then the last thing, what you can do right now, I mean, this weekend, tomorrow, you know, later on today, you can find data out there on the web that you already know about, NOAA data, weather data, all sorts of things that you've heard about, city government data that has information about air quality in Utah, and you can submit it using that form that I gave you. And that doesn't mean that you can't go and collect it. It just means that we want everybody to have a chance as well, or maybe you put in 30 sites, there's not going to be enough people to get to all of them. So we want to make sure they're all listed there. Okay? Questions?
What about the Jira Board?
The Jira Board, yes. We're working on a Jira Board right now that when these websites start coming in, we're going to assign tasks essentially out through a Jira Board. So probably next meeting, next Friday, we'll start getting into that. And we'll have you create kind of an account, and then you can get a Jira ticket essentially assigned to you that says, I need to go and find this research website, or I need to go and collect the data from this site, that sort of thing. So we can manage tasks and manage what needs to be done. So the Jira's, it's there, it's set up. Matt and I are still working on it. It's got some ways to go, but again, you'll see notifications right here as soon as that's available and ready to go. Other questions? Yes?
Well, we have like an FTP host that we can connect to. What are all the ways that we can get the data when it's in that simple spot?
So an FTP to host to, that is where this site is going to come in. So the question was, do we have a single host to connect to the FTP data? You're not going to FTP the data. You're going to submit that you have a data set ready to go. to pull it, to get that data set. Oh, you mean to pull them down?
Yeah, what's that?
Oh, they will be put on here as well. The raw ones will be put on here. So this is where you'll be able to go and get them. And you can come right here, and depending on the format, like CSV, you can download it from here. And that's where you'll be able to go and get those data sets.
Okay.
So they'll all be centralized on this site.
Okay.
The raw, and then when we clean them and put them back, those will go back to this site as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
What's the time range of the data set? So if we're looking at other data sources, what time range do we need to be looking for?
So the question was, what is the time range of the data set? That's a good question. We've been talking about that a lot, since we have to go back to the state, they may say something like, well, we have 60 terabytes of data. What do you want? And we can't say, well, we want all 60 terabytes because we've really got no place to put it. So we've been talking about, as a community, do we say everything's from 2005 to here? I don't think we can say that either because it's going to stifle the competition in some way. So to answer the question, what is the date range? I can't give you an answer to that yet. I don't know. And I think each data set's going to be independent to tell exactly what date range they are.
For now, let's try to find as much as we can.
That's, yeah.
And then we can narrow it down later.
From there, yeah. Our goal will be as much as we can, but obviously if someone comes up and says, well, I really need 1990 data, that might be very, very difficult. And we don't know what condition that data is in anyways. It's, 15 years old, so who knows? So there could be all sorts of things. Did that answer your question, Ben? That just reminded me of another great point too, that is not exactly on the website, but when you're doing these data sets, and Alton will probably talk about this a little bit, make sure you have two key pieces of information. Anytime you collect, we want the date/time that it happened. If you can get down to the minute, down to the hour, whatever it is, that date and time, and that location that it happened at. And by location, it can be latitude, longitude, or it could be a zip code. Most of our data sets, when we bring them back together to compete and analyze, we'll use those two key pieces of information for just about everything. Okay? There may be other key pieces of information as we move through the summer. We may find something else, but those two will be absolutely essential in everything we do.
Date, time, and location.
Date, time, and location, yes. And like I said, latitude and longitude is great if you've got the exact coordinates. We've already talked about ways to build it into a zip code or something else, but in other words, as granular as you can get.
And
yes.
IP should be fine too.
IP?
We can map that.
Oh, to do map for IP for location?
Yeah.
Okay, that's another idea too, good point. So we could use IP address as well as to get a location. Excellent. Yeah, at least have some sort of location. It's going to be very difficult if it does not have location and date time when it comes back.
We only want Utah data.
We do only want Utah data, yes. Maybe we should mention that too. Technically, when we get to the competition, you to be living in Utah, essentially, if you're going to compete. We have talked about some businesses will bring teams from outside of Utah, but as long as the business is focused here in Utah, then they can still compete as well. Okay, we are treating this as a Utah competition, trying to improve our Utah community here. All right, any other questions? Okay, I'll have Alton come up, talk about what he already did. I'm going to leave you on this page, so that way we're still screen sharing. So okay, just remember to repeat the question. Yeah, Scoop, you want me to
No, this is fine. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, thank you so much. So my name is Alton Alexander, and I understand that the webcast is working well. So if you're watching this remotely, we welcome you, and or if you're watching this afterwards on YouTube, thank you. So as I said, I'm a data scientist for an internet marketing company called One-on-One here in the Valley, a great little company, and I also represent a consulting team called Ziff.io. And as a data scientist, I don't necessarily know or understand the data, or kind of the what do you call that? Like the actual problem that we're trying to solve. For example, what these metrics mean or what's going on. But I like to kind of start real high level, and we can do that right now. So if you think about Utah, for example, some thoughts like this might come to your mind. Just gorgeous, right? And how many of you get out and ski or snowboard? Right? Oh yeah, I'm surprised you're not out snowboarding right now. Or, right now. We'll probably have some July powder, June powder, I guess. But unfortunately, when you fly in the winter, you end up seeing something like this. Bam. Not too pretty, right? And basically what it is it's where this cold air gets trapped because of the warm air and because we live in this little valley. Not too pretty. So again, like I said, I don't understand all the metrics, but what I want to do is I want to start by quantifying this in a way that we can use, we can put it into our machines or into our algorithms and tell a bigger story. So one of the first things I did in this little write-up was I went to our federal government website, United States Environmental Protection Agency, and they have downloadable air data for the entire United States. And in this, it's aggregated annually, daily, hourly, and there's some descriptions on these. And for starters, I just want to take a look at these particulates in the air, aggregated daily. So if I click here and I scroll down to the particulates, for example, there's measurements like PM 2.5, and then there's PM10, speciation, and so forth. But let's just take a look, for example, at this one, if you don't mind me downloading this on your computer. Yeah, we break down, go to Excel every once in a while. Okay, so for example, this is a great example of a data set that we'd want to capture and begin to use, even though this is just tip of the iceberg, right? It does help to tell a story. So we've got something like the country, the site, or the county, and the state. We have something like latitude, longitude, fantastic. We have a description of what the measurement is. So in this case, it's a pollutant and how it was measured and how it was aggregated. Then there's the actual measurement itself, the arithmetic mean, and so forth. And then some more details about, for example, like just breaking out what the city and the county and the actual location of this measurement site. So already they're providing a lot of data just aggregated for us. Thank you, federal government. So let's take a look at what this is telling us. So I went ahead and remember where my tab is. Let's see. D. Which one is it under? This one. Okay. So don't pay much attention to this. Actually, I made a real simple YouTube video that I'll be passing around to how to get into R. But R is just my tool of choice when I go and do this exploratory analysis. And I mean, you're free to use Excel or whatever your favorite tool is. But basically, I pulled in that data set and looked at some of the different levels, so I can just kind of visualize it real quick. But one of the first things I did was I broke out that arithmetic mean on the y-axis by each county. So that's kind of fun, and you can start to tell a story or build some hypotheses. For example, like for the most part, the distribution seems similar. You'll remember that this large black line in the middle of the plot here is the median. So for the most part, for the year 2013, each county has about the same level. But when you look at like the max, for example, Utah County has this extreme data point, at least on one day, that was almost double that of Salt Lake. Kind of surprising, and it begs some questions. But one of the next things I want to do is I want to plot that air quality over time. So I went ahead and did that just for Salt Lake County. And here I'm just taking the median of all the values that were measured because there's multiple measurement sites in Salt Lake County. And looking for the last 2 years, this is basically quantifying what we're seeing. In those winter months, you see it just spike, right? That's the inversion, when that cold air gets trapped and all of our pollutants just stay in the valley. My objective here really is I don't want to intimidate anybody, and I wanted to just kind of open it up so that we could begin to think about what kind of data is available and how we can bring that in and how we can use what's available to kind of start to build hypotheses. So I am actually intentionally kind of sloppy about how I do this, but for example, the next thing I did was I went ahead and broke it out by measurement site. So there's multiple sites along, in this particular data set, right, tip of the iceberg, in Utah, Salt Lake County, where they measured this particular PM 2.5 measurement. And then one of the last things I did for us, just to really open up the stage so that we can get some feedback and get some discussion from you about some of the data sets you might want to see and ways that you might want to view the data. I went ahead and just summarized every data set that, that they provided on that website for the year 2013 for Salt Lake County. So for example, here's carbon monoxide broken out for each sample for the year 2013. And you can see right away this correlates very well with PM 2.5. Definitely an indicator of poor air quality. There's also sulfur dioxide, another measurement that they record and provide. There's nitrogen dioxide, and again, as a data scientist, man, yeah, I mean, I took chemistry, but don't try to quiz me on what this means and what it means to our health or anything like that. They also provide ozone, another little interesting data point. PM10, which must be very similar to the PM 2.5 that I showed earlier. Another thing that you'll notice that's, at least that I find interesting about this, is as we're coming into the summer months, you also almost see a little bit of an elevation here. About when school gets out, maybe all of us are out on the lake and we're running our lawnmowers on the 4th of July, you know, and then school goes back in and we kind of just level off maybe a little bit. There might be a story to tell there. Acceptable PM, AQI, and speciation mass, another metric. Arsenic, yeah, you probably want to watch for that one. Lead, again, yeah, this must be some kind of lead count in the air. Barometric pressure, you'll find interesting stories that this data is telling. For example, they must have quit measuring this, this particular metric in Salt Lake County. Relative humidity, of course, and how the weather impacts our air quality. Ambient temperature. Again, you know, what is this data set telling me and why is it bimodal like this? Outdoor temperature, of course. So again, I just kind of wanted to wet your palates and introduce some of the metrics and just, again, tip the iceberg and hopefully not intimidate anybody, but in a way almost show that that this data set, these data sets are there and we need everybody's collaborative help to interpret them and begin to formulate hypotheses that we can test and evaluate and hopefully tell a story that has a huge impact on our communities and the nation. Right? That's my spiel. Any questions?
So yeah, it was excellent that Alton did this for us and really showed you some of the stuff. And the key thing here is that, you know, Alton's got a really large brain that knows this really well. He did this very quickly. The whole point is to help you learn how to do these things as well over the summer. You know, this is not going to be kept there. He's perfectly willing to train and help out and coordinate those things. So it's going to be a summer of learning, not just a summer of solving big data and air quality problems. So any questions now overall? Since we're kind of pretty much done, we're kind of wrapped up, you know, we're going to kick off the next thing. So 2 questions up front.
A question for you, Alton. Was there geolocation data with any of these data sets that would show like where in the valley and stuff?
Absolutely. Yeah, actually, and that's why I brought it up. If you go to the Excel file.
Was your Excel still open? I thought I saw it.
Yeah, this one, they were kind enough to even record the latitude and longitude. Cool. And I just didn't get time to put that on a map.
Yeah, it's right there.
But it also has the actual location of the measurement site, as in the street coordinates. Which is kind of fun.
Yeah, and we're dying to give you guys too much data to work with. We're dying to provide so much that there's so many great things. Yes?
Yeah. So a lot of these, as I understand it, fixed sites, right? They're managed by the city.
Correct. Well, some are and some are not. It just depends.
Do you know the information along the lines of being able to put on personal like sensors as well?
Oh, you mean like a Fitbit that somebody's wearing or something like that?
Well, that they get more for air quality.
Right.
Air quality sensors.
It's definitely, I mean, so the question is there sites or something that opens up the personal data that somebody might be wearing some sort of device or smaller devices that would have information about that data?
Yeah, I know there are some sensors you provide for your home.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I don't know. We definitely could start looking it up or research it, and let's see if we can find some sites, and then find out if we can use the data or not. There's always, whenever we touch any of this data, there's always a concern of PII and personal information. So we're going to make sure that whatever we bring into our systems is cleansed of that information. So, but definitely we'd love to research it and try to find out.
Will you mention Matt at the university and then the state data?
Yeah, so there's a gentleman up at the university that runs a lot of the air quality stations here in the Salt Lake Valley, and they already have a site with a lot of information, but we're going to be meeting with them next week, and there's a good chance they're going to basically let us directly into the back end of it and say, here's all the data we have. And that'll be basically all the different air quality stations in the state, in the Salt Lake Valley, right there ready to use. So it's an excellent, excellent chance. Randy.
Do you have any plans to have like an air quality expert talk to us about what these different values actually mean? Like,
yeah. So to repeat the question that Randy asked, are we going to have an air quality expert to help us out with this? Absolutely, and thank you for reminding me because that needs to be up on the FAQ. We are going to bring people in. The name, I mean, Nick, what's the name of the guy at the division?
Bryce from the division of.
Right. He wanted to come and do a one-on-one already, but we didn't have time before this meeting. So there will definitely be a meeting saying one-on-one, here's what air quality is all about, here's the different things that can happen. And then the gentleman from the U as well has a really good chance of explaining some of that too. So we're definitely bringing people in. When it comes down to the competition time, they'll be the experts kind of judging what happens in the end, because they'll be the ones guiding what truly happens with the air quality data. Okay?
Yeah. So what is not clear to me is how the competition going to happen. I understand it's a complex issue, and you're going to start analyzing data.
Yep.
So the idea is to analyze and come up with proposals, solutions, ideas. What is it?
Yeah. So how the question is, how is the competition actually going to improve air quality or make anything better? What are the actionable things that are going to come out of it? There's several things. All the data that we collect and gather will be given back to the state and to the air quality experts out there that really know what to do with it. So essentially, in a lot of ways, we're doing work for them. We're helping them out. We're giving them that data. We're putting it back. All the code that we did to do that, to make that work, will also be given back. So by giving that code back, then they can do that in the future all the time. And then the last piece is the questions, the answers, the things that we consider in the competition that actually say, this is how we're going to make it better. Those can become actionable insights if someone chooses to act upon those. So we expect the teams to come up with some cool idea like, hey, if everyone walked 3 miles a day and didn't drive, then it would improve air quality or something like that. Some pie in the sky theory. But if they can show it and prove it, that could be the answer to a lot of these problems. That's how, did that answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
So one other thing that's related is we do have the ability to take some of the ideas that come out of the competition and help turn those into business ideas. Maybe they don't necessarily relate to air quality. Maybe you can turn around and say, hey, because we can show traffic patterns, that itself can become a business idea. Right? But there are other ways that these can become actionable, can actually accomplish something great.
Okay, so I have a question.
Yes.
In this initial phase where we're actually gathering the data sets, that's basically what we're doing, right? We're gathering.
Yes, we are collecting, yes.
We don't have to necessarily have them transform and clean and whatever to upload. So if there is an idea, like I think maybe that there's a data set here and I've kind of made some initial contact, and do you have data? Then I post that here,
so
and then we just follow up on on it?
Exactly. So the way the process works is that we start right now, you come down here and you start finding the data sets and you submit them to this form. That doesn't mean that you have to do all the work yourself. That doesn't mean that's stopping you from doing the work. The goal is that we start finding those, we compile a really large list of all those things. And then we all start tasking on ways to clean it. As Elton showed, he pulled it down. He had to do some work to it. He had to do some changes to modify it. And then it's pushed back to the main site where everything goes. So in other words, that's the exact process now. And that process should be taught essentially in these meetings over the next few weeks. So that when we're at the end, towards the August timeframe, we not only have clean data sets, but we have people that know exactly how to get it there. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Could you explain why you want to stay only with Utah data and not look at other cities, other states, other countries? Because the point of comparison may be very enlightening.
Yeah, okay, so the question is why do we want to stay within Utah? Now, when I say we want to stay within Utah, we want to improve the air quality in Utah. If somebody wants to go and get a data set from Seattle and compare it to the air quality in Utah and say, we're terrible because they're wonderful or something like that, we're not necessarily against that. Our goal with focusing on Utah is a couple things, and Nate probably says this better than I, or Nick probably says this better than I, but to showcase the state of Utah, showcase what we can do, and then improve the air quality here in Utah. Now, can an outside organization, say the state of Ohio, come and take the code that we used to get this data and to do this work? Absolutely. We would love to see that. We would love to see that happen. But we're trying to focus on our piece of this for right now. So we're also 2 to 3 volunteers. So saying let's take on the entire country is kind of a really bad idea for us.
So comparison data will be incredibly helpful because you can relate back and see how Utah is.
Nick,
but if you're looking at Seattle, you may have a problem with inversion. In Seattle is not going to be the same thing as it is here.
Right.
So now you need to look at instead LA, and now you need to look at Chicago, and now you need to look at all these other states. And very quickly, you now are looking at 50 different states to provide data sets, and it becomes a really, really huge problem that may actually make it more difficult to get to the heart of the matter. Does that make sense?
Yeah, question though on that. I think maybe one of the underlying reasons for that question would be some things might actually have inputs into the air quality. For example,
Yes.
U.S. Forest Service or meteorological patterns coming in and out. So if there's a lot of burn in San Diego,
Yeah, fire data, absolutely, right.
Some of that's going to happen.
Right.
Yes.
Again, our focus, our drive is Utah. That's what we're doing this for. That's why we're here. That's the focus. We're not saying, please don't go to San Diego and find out fire data or anything like that. Not at all. We are saying, use any data available to you to figure this out. But our focus has been, how do we improve our day-to-day lives, our day-to-day air quality here in Utah? That's what our focus is.
How these pollutants travel across state lines, across counties, and everything else should absolutely be something we look at.
Yeah.
Props if you get a Chinese data set on your
Yeah, we should probably have an award right there if you get a Chinese data set. If you can actually manage to get one.
Speaking of additional awards, during the summer, as we fill out the Jira boards and task boards, we are going to try to do a fun little competition thing to show who's completing the most tasks, who's doing what, and everything else, so that at the end of the summer, we can give away some prizes for that. And we can have people like Alton and Ben competing against each other. So.
Some people tend to work more when they compete against each other. We don't know why that is, but it just happens. So, other questions?
You mentioned Jira. Are you setting up a GitHub organization too?
We do have a GitHub organization. So the question was, are we setting up a GitHub? Yes, we have one already under Utah Geek Events. I'm working on getting it started and set up. Matt and I will work on that. I might ask for some help too, Randy, if you've got some. So, you know, anything to help do that. But yes, we do have one set up. Other questions? No?
Does everybody feel like tomorrow they can go out and spend all day, every day, from now on, working on air quality?
If you really have any questions as to how much time or commitment you want to spend this summer or anything, think of two things. This is how I'm really thinking of it. One, you're going to learn a whole lot. You know, even if it's not big data, let's say all you do is relational databases, great. You're still going to learn a whole lot about data. And that's important. That's important to your career. That's important to moving forward. That's important to everything. And the second, when you walk out the door today, go look up. It looks like crap right now. And that's the other reason to do it. That's the other compelling reason. Because it's not even wintertime yet. I live out in West Jordan. I could not see downtown very well. And I hate that every time.
That being said, please don't forget that you have the rest of your work, your lives, your everything else.
Don't forget all of that. No.
We don't want anybody coming at the end of the summer saying, hey, I spent so much time on this, I now have to go to jail because I forgot to.
Or they lost their job. But
yeah, that might be more.
Okay, so other questions, comments, concerns? Oh, one thing to mention, we will be getting sponsors throughout the summer. We thank Leonardo very much for giving us the space. We've got this space all summer long. Let's give them a hand right now. So, and then, yes, and well, one more thing. And sponsors, so Utah Geek Events brought us the pizza today, but we're going to have more and more sponsors throughout the summer, different companies that want to help out and want to make this better. The exhibit here at the Leonardo, we've got Matt and Bob working on the exhibit. They're going to work directly with the Leonardo, and we're going to have a great big data/data exhibit about technology in Utah that is going to be put on here. So that's going to be really, really cool. And again, something coming out of this that you'll be able to come and see, you know, things that we did over the summer for that. It's going to be really awesome.
Check out the tech exhibit on your way out as well.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you everybody for coming. All right, we will stop our broadcast now. Thank you everybody for being on the phone.